to fight the petrol you see us. Oh, we've got to fight. Let's go fight. Oh, our black people. We've got to fight.
It's your war. War in the east, war in the west, war up north, war down south. This a war.
Abiba Fahodie, Abiba Tumi. Welcome everybody out there to another special edition of the African Survival Initiative, hosted by Jicho La Kimbunga, here in partnership with Kimbunga Media. So today we're here for a great conversation. For those who have been able to see the promotion, we're here today to talk about COINTELPRO, and in particular, COINTELPRO Assassinations. Not only the act of the United States intelligence, snitching or spying, listening in, but the actual act of taking life, the actual act of assassinating not only the characters, but the actual bodies, unaliving our leaders in the past. And we just want to talk about it today, particularly with a lot that's going on internationally. Now that you see that the United States has a death warrant out for our brother, Captain Ibrahim Traore. As African nationalists, we're here to keep it holistic. But of course, before we even get started, we follow tradition. And before I say too much, I would like to bring forth my elder, my Baba, PG, Achillean Kuma of the UNIA ACL RC 2020, and also of this brotherhood, to call the ancestors near. Thank you very, very much.
Otep, Abaragani. Calling the ancestors is traditional and starting anything because you definitely want their wisdom and guidance with us. So let me call Queen Nzinga from the continent of Africa, Queen Mother Moore from here in Philadelphia, from America, call Queen Estelle James of the UNIA, also call Mae Ferguson, Sadie Madison, all of the UNIA, call the other queens that have gone before us to stand and guide us, and call the brother kings, because without the balance of power, we would not be able to salute Thomas W. Harvey, Charles L. James. I want to salute Medger Evers, the Honorable Malcolm X. I want to bring these spirits with us. So as we have these conversations, Brother Martin Luther King, we can relate to them and feel their presence and allow that to guide our entity. I say that and also say to bring your own elders with you, bring and cite their names. My father, Frank Murphy, my mother, Betty Murphy. I bring them on, my grandparents, bring them on, bring yours with you, because that makes us holistic and makes us family. One God, one aim, one destiny, one Africa.
Thank you, PG. Appreciate that. Like you said, one Africa, that's what it's all about. So with no further ado, as we always do, we always start with, the wisdom moment. We always go right to our elders, those who have the most experience, those who contain the most knowledge, have the most insight, out of all of us, those who've been on the ground. And so we're going to start with the elders' reflection. Elders' reflection is basically giving the elders opportunity to set the stage for the rest of the conversation, and also to provide us who weren't around with some insight from those who were, that can really get us acclimated to the same level of seeing what everyone else is seeing. All right. So Elders Reflection, we have Baba Senghor Baye, and we also have PG Achille Nkrumah to assist us with that. I think, okay, Baba Senghor, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Greetings, everyone, and
What's that?
and give thanks to the ancestors first, and the Most High and the ancestors. And I have to start this with: look for me in the whirlwind or the storm. Look for me all around you. But with God's grace, I shall come and bring with me countless millions of black so-called slaves who have died in America and the West Indies, and the millions in Africa, to aid you in the fight for liberty, freedom, and life. I say that because we want to also include our political prisoners who have become ancestors now. Very important to recognize Sekou Ndinga, Matula Shakur,
I said,
yes, Bilal Sunni Ali, and it's so many
right.
others that have gone before us, but they were all victims of so-called COINTELPRO in many ways. And not only that, many of them served long prison lockdown sentences. They were able to finish 25, 30 some odd years and come out. And unfortunately, because of the maltreatment that they got for all of those years, the poor food, the poor treatment, the poor access to health and wellness, it was very hard for them to continue to survive even when they were released. As we all know, we are all our political prisoners in our minds. But it's so important for those of us who lived it, and I know Baba Achille is with us, we lived watching the track down of not only giants like Malcolm X, who they assassinated, not only like Patrice Lumumba, who they assassinated, not only like Matula Shakur, who they assassinated. And I could name a lot more. I want to stop there because you got my point. But because those brothers did the work that they did while they were here, they set the foundation for the revolutionary and freedom movement of us going forward. Their families have gone through pure D hell because of COINTELPRO. Many. Fulani Sunni Ali, who was the wife of Bilal Sunni Ali, was also a political prisoner. That sister was helping heal people in Belize in particular and around the world, actually, with acupuncture. So not only was she continuing the work of Matula Shakur, she was continuing the work of many of our ancestors like Queen Nzinga, who came way before us. So it's very important for us to never forget our brothers and sisters who have sacrificed their physical life outside of lockdown for helping build the movement going forward. As the PG likes to say, it's one movement. We are no different. COINTELPRO first cut its teeth coming after the Right Excellent Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, assigned by the young gay Edgar Hoover. and that's how he cut his teeth.
Thanks for that gay part.
Yeah, that's how he cut his teeth. Is tracking down Marcus Garvey, because Marcus Garvey became one of the most feared black men on the planet, only because Marcus Garvey was following those ancestors that came before him, like Dessalines, Robert Love, Edward Wilmot Blyden, Bishop Henry McNeil Turner, and we could go on and on, Alexander Cromwell. It's many. So this is not a start of the revolution. This is a continuation of the revolution, even when they came to Africa and kidnapped us and made us captive prisoners. So that's why we in the UNIA always say we are prisoners of war in our minds. They have us locked down mentally. Because if we were in our true African selves mentally, we wouldn't tolerate any foolishness from the ancestor. I mean, from the oppressor. Our ancestors didn't tolerate it. And those particular political prisoners that were attacked by COINTELPRO, and let's don't leave out Dr. King, because what many people don't know, Dr. King was a revolutionary also. And just because his ideology might have been a little different than Malcolm's, it didn't mean that they weren't striving to move in the same direction. It didn't mean that Dr. King didn't have Pan-Africanism in him, because he actually went to Africa. He actually did a lot of things, and they try to wipe that out. They always try to talk about, you know, this whole thing of hand in hand and all this other foolishness. But as Dr. King was coming more into consciousness and he knew his life was threatened, he became more active Pan-Africanist. Let's talk about some of the prisoners that are locked down now, like Imam Jamil Al-Amin, H-Rap Brown.
Yeah, man.
And H-Rap Brown was not only a member of SNCC, but he was a powerful Islamic community builder in Atlanta. And COINTELPRO came at him. We know he was innocent. There are people who have come out to testify that they were the ones that did it versus him, but still, he is still confined and imprisoned and is still suffering from health issues. So we can never forget him. Certainly, we cannot forget Mumia Abu-Jamal, which most people around the world are very familiar with him, because not only was Mumia Abu-Jamal an activist, he was a master journalist and still continues to be a master journalist, even though he's been in lockdown with bad health.
Yes,
he just celebrated an Earth Day. So we want to definitely hail him up and say, free him, free them all.
Free them all.
The reality is they didn't just assassinate and attack them with COINTELPRO. They were attacking us as well, psychologically, because they felt that if they could take one of us out, or if they could imprison one of us, they could keep us all captive in our minds and afraid. But as the wise Garveyites taught us, you know, the opposite of fear is love, and we love Black people. We ain't got no fear. We understand that life don't end once you are so-called physically no longer here. They call it death. My PG was going to talk about it. I love the way he says it, life to life. Because the reality is we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And even though those giants made their sacrifices and left legacies, let's don't forget Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, better known as Omar Wali. His father was tracked down, murdered, and killed. His mother was locked up and pushed away because of their Garveyite race-first works. Let's don't forget Malcolm's grandson, who was also assassinated. So that's a really good example of a three-tried generation of very powerful Black men who were no longer satisfied with being imprisoned in the bowels of America and did everything they could. But even people like Bilal Sunni Ali, people like Fred Hampton, they left legacies of family people who also been tracked by COINTELPRO. I want to make that clear. Sometimes people forget the families also go through POD hell. And even though they support the matriarchs, the heads of the family, they were extremely innocent of even doing anything, but yet COINTELPRO puts pressure on them. So this is a super important issue because whatever they call it, COINTELPRO here, they got the same thing going on in Africa. They got the same thing going on in the Caribbean. They got the same thing going on in Canada, because their objective is to keep us subjugated, keep us afraid from following our African tradition. So what I say as one who actually lived during the time of the assassination of Malcolm X, of the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, that gave me life. That gave me reason to do the work that I'm doing now. So let's don't be afraid just because they take one of us out. They can't take all of us out. And the fact of the matter is, when we rise, we will definitely address the issue with our ancestors, as Marcus Garvey said, as I open, because those ancestors will be with us. And we will make Yurugu, the system of Euro oppression, all of the aspects of Euro, pay their dues. And the Most High and our ancestors will make them pay. So I say to my brothers and sisters today, yeah, they got all kinds of things that they do, and they still do, but they can't attack us and take us out spiritually. We have the spiritual Blacktricity power to rise, and no matter how many of them they attack, no matter how many of us they attack, no matter how many of us they take out, we got more coming. Keep your hands off the Sahel states. We see that there's a big movement growing on the continent, but we want brothers and sisters in the diaspora to know, listen, if they move on any of our brothers and sisters in this day, 2025, they moving on all of us, as they did yesterday. So don't be content with the food of chickens, brothers and sisters. It's time for us to rise up our wings, take Africa back, and stop the foolishness. So they can take their COINTELPRO and go to hell. Now, we ain't fearing nothing. So anyway, I stop on that point. I want to hear more from our PG, and maybe we'll do a little more reasoning in Chief Bode.
Yeah.
But for real, brothers and sisters, it's time for us to rise up. Rise up. America is falling. Let's don't let them bricks fall on us, and let's don't be afraid. They got too many of us in lockdown. We say let all the political prisoners out. In fact, let all the prisoners out. Because y'all ain't
Absolutely.
rehabilitating them. We got ways and means of rehabilitating our own. So
Free them all means everybody.
So free them all.
Mm-hmm.
I say free them all, but I don't say free all that included the other color. They can keep them. But let me just to
PG.
yes, sir.
Real quick, can you define what COINTELPRO is for the people as well?
What I wanted to do in talking about COINTELPRO, because that technically is a modern terminology, but I want to take us back to a point to where they didn't call it COINTELPRO. They called it the Negro Bureau to deal with settling us after allegedly eliminating slavery. So the COINTELPRO that we look at today is a counterintelligence program that is designed to interface, interact with, subjugate, and also attempt to destroy any movement that is seen as a threat to the democracy of America. But that we have been seen as a threat to the democracy of America since we were arrived here in 1619. So let's take a little history tour. When they allegedly put us in chains, not allegedly, when they put us in chains and allegedly called us animals and said we were 3/5 of a man, they also knew we were not, because they only raped our women, and that meant they felt they were messing with an animal. That's not true. They were raising a group of people to have a certain mindset. So COINTELPRO, which is now, wasn't then, because they hadn't thought about it as a government to say we need to subjugate them in that manner. See, so as we began to grow, as we began to identify ourselves and realize that I'm going to go to the 60s. In the 60s, the early 60s, they weren't so much along with us as COINTELPRO. They were just doing the FBI investigations, the same shit they did with the Honorable Markham Sy Garvey. See, they got sophisticated when we got better at it. The better we got, the more sophisticated they became. And so they took their co-intelligence program to another level. See, they started off with infiltration. They did that with Marcus Garvey. But let's take it back again. In the early 1800s, after slavery, they instituted the Negro Bureau, which was supposed to see to our rights. We elected more black people then to the governments across the South, and white folks said, oh, shit. That became the basis upon which they began to build their programmatic destruction of people of African descent. As my brother alluded to earlier, free us all. That's true. But then if you free us all, then stop giving us the unnecessary bullshit. See, they give you, oh, you're going to be okay. You can be free. You can be free here in England. You can be free in France. You can be free in America. Well, now America is telling you, if you brown skinned and I don't like you, I'm going to transport you out. I don't care if you a citizen or not. So they moved COINTELPRO forward. But that whole idea was to be able to infiltrate, instigate, disrupt, and destroy an African liberation movement. That's COINTELPRO. But see, we have to make sure we touch on the history of it, because as you shout out names and we yell out names that people don't know, here's what people know. People know we call the Jim Crow laws. See, because white folks talk about it. White folks don't talk about Markham and Sy Garvey like we do. But white folks talk about the Jim Crow laws. So people say, oh, yeah, Jim Crow. And now they see it because of Project 2025, which we talked about, and folks didn't believe it. They see it coming right at them. So you look at COINTELPRO, Project 2025, and you relate it to America's historical struggle to make sure that they keep America white. That's what they established this country for, to be a white nation. Just for the record, during the Revolutionary War, black people fought with the British because the British promised freedom. Black people fought with the American, quote unquote American, that became an American because they thought they were going to be free.
Yeah.
It didn't happen at either time. So COINTELPRO, counterintelligence program designed to infiltrate, distract, destroy, and end any revolutionary spirit within people of African descent. I'm sorry, we will not be docile. We will not go willingly. into the night. We will stand, we will fight, and we will eliminate this white nationalist that is attempting to destroy us. Our ancestors have determined it because of the sacrifice they made. We stand on their shoulders.
Absolutely. Ashe. Thank y'all. I appreciate both of you for your wisdom and just the ability to summarize very sophisticated history in such a way, right? Because when I first learned about COINTELPRO, I immediately related it to the plantation. How the, if I put myself in the position of a Urugu slave master, and I want to be able to hear everything and know everything that my enslaved Africans are doing because I'm terrified. I sleep with one eye open. And so it's really indicative of the fear, of the terror that comes from terrorizing people. You can't go around the world terrorizing people and not be terrified yourself. Because eventually all you're going to think about is everybody getting revenge on you. And so our liberation struggle and COINTELPRO is always, like PG was saying, coexisted. They just didn't always call it that. They always had a program to infiltrate. They always had a program to disseminate false information. They always had a program to control and neutralize any resistance that we would put up. And so, in general, when we say COINTELPRO, we're talking about historical suppression of Black liberation struggle.
Just to add to your point, that's what integration is too.
Absolutely.
That's what integration is too. Let me let you integrate. Let me let you have that white woman and make you think that you're going to be okay. Not just sleeping with one eye open, realizing that may be something you want. And so then if I give you that piece of candy, I can then sleep with one eye open partially, because now I'm taking away the terror that I enforce upon you, because I get you to believe you're going to be okay.
That's right.
And let me throw this in there too, because I did mention a little bit about the families, but what a lot of people need to understand is this whole counterintelligence program was not only designed to kill eventually leaders or to track them, it was also to character assassinate them.
Right.
In our minds, by trying to accuse them of this and this. They made telephone calls to wives talking about other women and just a whole lot of things they did to do everything they could to break down the family. And so this COINTELPRO was designed at us. As Baba Achilles say, it did not, they might not have called it the counterintelligence program, but they had counterintelligence programs all along the way. So I just want to throw that in there because it's important for us to rebuild the family concept. The bloodline family, the extended family, our ancestral family. We must be family. That they knew how important family was and is to us. So what they do is to try to attack us, try to discredit us, and to push us away, excuse me, from the extended family, which means you don't look at H-Rap Brown as H-Rap Brown, the man that was fighting for your rights. You look at him as some kind of a criminal. So they did everything they could to attack character. And that's important for us to recognize, because even though they might not have locked you up, even though they might not have killed you, they've been a lot of people who have been character assassinated.
Oh yeah.
Kwame Nkrumah is a perfect example.
Oh yeah. And let me tell you something, brother. As soon as I began to act like I had a little bit of political consciousness, as soon as I act like I was going to try the system, everybody close to me was like, boy, you going crazy. You know what they're going to do to you. You know what they're going to do to you. You know they're going to lock you up. You know they're going to get you. And that fear that if we stand up for ourselves, something negative, something bad and destructive is going to happen to us has kept us in these damn chains. And it's a psychological play. It's a psychological play. Just like when they did put down rebellions, physical rebellions, they would put their heads on the sticks and say, these were some nasty niggas. These were some, this, that. And it's the same thing. So hence the importance of this show today. Because COINTELPRO is something that is always going on. We're talking about COINTELPRO 2.0 now. Because right now you have liberation struggles, just like you had them back then. And people are being surveyed right now. People are being arrested right now. People are sitting in prison right now. And some people probably giving up their last breath right now. We don't even know it. Because it's a secret operation. It's not something they publicly say, okay, I'm doing this to you. A lot of it is to psychologically damage you, like what Baba was saying. Character assassination, smear your good work. You know, turn your closest people from
against you. Right.
Yeah. And I believe you talked about Malcolm Shabazz a little earlier, the grandson of Malcolm X.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to throw this in there too before we get into COINTELPRO 2.0, because Malcolm's grandson became an activist, whether people know it or not. And
That's
he
right.
didn't just become an activist, but he was born under surveillance. He was born under COINTELPRO, just like Fred Hampton Jr., just like Tupac, just like all the other sons and daughters of those who challenged the empire. You know, and when you think about it, I think the numbers was like they said it was at one point like 70,000 Black Panthers at one point, and I'm like, where are those cubs? Imagine the information that the federal government started their lives off with, and no one thinks about these things. But when you understand what COINTELPRO is, you realize it's very important for us to know who we are, because they already know.
Because they think about those things. They think hundreds of years down the line to maintain this quote unquote white nationalist government. You can go all back to 1619, come 100 years up. They was already thinking 1719, we'll still have this under control, 1819, and then they began to adjust because realizing that people will rise. They're not going to stay subjugated. Generation after generation is going to change, it's going to rise, it's going to begin to build, and we've done that. What the current time has done is given us access to greater, different information. However, we have to have it in our people's mind to search for it, to understand that this is not a system that we have to accept, that we can absolutely build an independent African nation. We can absolutely construct a governmental structure that will address our particular needs. We, even here, can do that without them, because we have that ability. We just have to begin to believe in us. COINTELPRO 2.0 gets you not to believe in you by showing you a history that they control the language of. They control what it looks like.
Absolutely.
And that's problematic.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, Baba, you're so right. For COINTELPRO 2.0, there's a narrative that we were born and inherit once we get into the movement. Because I can remember COINTELPRO was like the boogeyman. You know, I'm a young cat, but just hearing about it, I'm like, oh man, do I really want to do this?
Right.
You know,
exactly.
You know, am I sure? You know, it puts doubt into the mind of a young radical, you know, of a young revolutionary, someone seeking freedom. And so, just like I was saying about Lil Malcolm, you know, I'm one of the people that can say that I witnessed COINTELPRO operate against him. And one of the ways that they operated against young Malcolm is that they would make up reasons to interfere with his liberty. He went to prison one time for jaywalking. You know, he literally for jaywalking. And every time he would leave a house, the feds would show up and say, "Hey, have you seen Malcolm?" And then give their cards to the people. So his friends, his close relatives, they were scared to let him in the house because the feds would watch him leave and then press the house. And so he was feeling like, man, where do I go? Where do I go that when I leave, they're not going to go assassinate my character behind me? They're not going to go make people afraid to let me back in their house. Right? So that's what they did to Malcolm, man. They really like cut off his close circle to the point that he felt like he had to make a dash. And it's a very sad thing. And I'm talking about only 12 years ago. Not too much. I ain't talking about the 60s. I'm talking about the grandchildren now. Today, 2.0.
Right.
And so it's still going on. And right now, just to kind of, we see that the struggle is intensifying, particularly in Africa, but also all around the world. People are becoming more conscious of who we are. People are being fed up with this system. No matter how you want to define it or what part of it you want to attack, we're tired of it. And so the greatest example that we see today, of course, we see it in the Sahel. There's times where the center of our struggle may shift to Brazil. It may shift to Southern Africa. But right now, we see it right here in the Western Sahel. And we got to know how to identify with it. We see that right now, Captain Ibrahim Traore, the hero of the revolution currently, is under heavy fire, heavy assault by the United States government, by the United States military, and also France and all the whole West. They can't stand this brother. And they've been trying to kill this brother. Over 17, 18 times they've tried to take this brother's life already. And so that right there is not only that's COINTELPRO 2.0. That's a whole nother level. Yeah, that's a whole nother level of it. Now they're surveying us with new technology. You know, now they don't have to have informants. They can spy our social media. They can spy our emails. So it's different. We're operating in a whole new generation.
So before we move forward, I want to also hail up some success.
Yeah. I want us to segue into a presentation from Brother Sam P.K. Collins, our Jicho La Kimbunga UNIA PAFM brother.
Chief, before you do that, Chief, I want to make sure people know a success story that COINTELPRO continues to put millions of dollars out to try to get her back. That is our sister Assata Shakur. I want to say that because
that's right.
You know, we can go all the way back to ancient Maroons and all of them. Many of us got away from COINTELPRO, got away from the system. And so sometimes we don't talk about that. I mean, we're talking about those that have been taken out. Yes, but Assata Shakur, y'all, they put up millions of dollars to try to get her. They still have not been successful.
Can't get her.
And so I just wanted to stress that out there, because many of so-called political prisoners who got away, or those people who came under attack, got away. We can talk about brothers and sisters on the continent all over the world that were passed that had to get out of here. But what I wanted to let people know, there is a way to escape it, even physically. So I just wanted to throw that out there so everybody don't get, like what Chief just said, so afraid, oh, they're going to do this and they're going to do that. Hey, it's not about what they're going to do. It's about what we're going to do for ourselves and to stop them from doing what they've been doing. But anyway, I'll stop on that point. I know we want to move forward, and I don't know where the Chief left us just now, but I know we want to move into the major presentation. And I know Brother Shakara, I don't know whether you want to come on this side and add anything. I know how you feel about it, but we always like to get your perspective sometimes too. But we want to move into a major presentation by one of the powerful Garveyites and race first Pan-Africanists, our brother Sam P.K. Collins. So when Chief comes, if Chief doesn't come back, Shakara, oh, there you go, Chief. So you can go ahead on and bring in the next segment, Chief.
Sorry about that. But
no need to be sorry.
Very important what you was touching on, though. Very important what you was talking about. The political exile. The political exile of genuine revolutionary forces. Not only Assata is very, very, she's like a queen. She's a queen when it comes to this revolutionary thing. But you had others as well, like Brother Pete O'Neill.
Yes,
Charlotte O'Neill, husband and wife couple. You got those who are less known, like George Wright. Brother George Wright was one of the BLA members who took the plane and $1 million and went over to Algeria. He was the only one who slipped through the cracks. They caught him in I believe it was Spain or Portugal a few years ago, like 10 years ago. America couldn't touch him. They refused to turn him over. And so yeah, there are those success stories of those who said, man, you know, for my life's sake, let me get out of there and continue to struggle elsewhere. So even some would say that W.E.B. Du Bois was in that category, as well as Kwame Ture. Even though they were able to return, go and come, they still was in a situation where it wasn't safe for them to stay put at, in America.
Absolutely.
So
even Marcus
that's a very,
Garvey,
very, very important part.
Chief, even Marcus Garvey, when they so-called commuted his sentence, people got to recognize they tracked and trailed and did everything they do to character assassinate Garvey all the way to his death, his physical death. I mean, so while he was in Jamaica, while he was in the UK, they continued to do everything to block the
Yeah.
rehabilitation of the government, and they did everything they could to push Garvey away and to keep Garvey out of the minds of African people. But because of dedicated Africans who worked with Garvey, he was able to train them. And so consequently, we're here today, me and Baba Akili, to carry on that legacy. I just wanted to stress that even they commuted his sentence, what people got to understand, Garvey's human rights were violated. And
And
So-
not just by the U.S. I mean, the
Exactly.
United Kingdom, France,
Exactly.
because there was a conspiracy amongst the white governments
That's
to stop the development of an independent African nation. That conspiracy exists today. COINTELPRO may be here on these shores, but the type of conspiracy to end and not allow Africa to be a unified nation is worldwide. There isn't a European country or a white country that stands in concert with having a free Africa. Because if it does, Africa will rule the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we got to understand intelligence. We got to know how to counter that too.
Yeah.
You know, when they're spying and undermining our work and character assassinating us and using agitational propaganda, this is the need for political education. This is the need for political organization and activism, because through the political organization, activism, education, we're able to counter those attacks. We're able to fight back. When they paint a narrative, we can fight back through our revolutionary media. When they put pressure on our leaders, we can fight back with a protest. We can fight back with a rebellion. You know, these are aspects of who we are and what we've been doing all this time. But within the context of COINTELPRO is how we're analyzing it today. I do want to go on. I'm excited to see what Brother Sam P.K. Collins came up with. For those who don't know, every time we have an ASI roundtable, Sam P.K. Collins, our brother, Liberian brother, based out of D.C., grassroots journalist, educator. You know, I held him up very, very, very highly because he represents the next generation coming up. He reminds me of Mumia Abu-Jamal. That's who he reminds me of. His consciousness, his look, you know, his style. You know, but he did a special presentation for this COINTELPRO discussion. Hopefully behind the stage, Brother Shakarai is ready. But with no further ado, I'd like for us to get right to it. After that, we'll come back and we'll talk about specific assassinations.
Peace and blessings, family. This is Brother Sam P.K. Collins, grassroots journalist, educator, and author based out of Banneker City. I'm coming before you today with this presentation about COINTELPRO, a very, very important program as it relates to our current situation as a people, and what I consider the main reason, if not one of the main reasons, for the dismantling of efforts to nation build and to establish self-determination of African people on this land and all around the world. And today's presentation will provide a timeline of events through the prism of at least 4 figures of that time to help us establish an understanding of why it is currently that our frame of understanding as Black people is still mired in Americanism and not mired in self-determination. And it's my hope that through this presentation that we as organizers are better able to assess the holes that are in our movement and what is needed in order for us to turn our people onto self-determination and to put the building blocks for the establishment of indigenous self-determined African nations, because what we have currently is not that. And COINTELPRO was a tool in making sure that that never happened. It is a tool, a subversive tool, as a matter of fact, that was very pivotal in moving the pieces on the chessboard of the American political system, and once again, shrinking our frame of understanding of what it means to be free Black people. So today we have Black people who are in the system and who espouse American values and who are our elected or selected officials, where we should have Black people who are self-determined and who have African sovereignty on their mind and who are working toward the betterment, the collective betterment of African people and reestablishing our African sovereignty. So COINTELPRO once again was pivotal in making sure that that didn't happen. And there is no better person as an example of that, unfortunately, than Imam Jamil Al-Amin, also known as H. Rap Brown. He is not only the target of COINTELPRO, but the target of the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act, which was installed after 9/11 in the climate of what they call Islamophobia. So with Jamil Al-Amin, who is currently locked up in a federal penitentiary, despite having state level charges, and who is also declining in health, we have a prime example of a system that, even though it doesn't exist, has taken on different forms to subjugate Black people and to neutralize radical movements that lead to the establishment of Black nations. Because the ultimate goal was to stop these movements that were seen as a threat to the American ethos. And Jamil Al-Amin, once again, is a current modern day example of that, and somebody who was held along with Kwame Ture as opposition to John Lewis. John Lewis, the late John Lewis, being the more moderate, more accommodating civil rights figure. He is held in opposition to Jamil Al-Amin and Kwame Ture, who was also a target of COINTELPRO. So once again, we have ongoing examples of efforts by the U.S. government to limit our frame of mind and to keep us in Americanism. Very important content that y'all need to understand for this presentation. Moving on, we have a Garveyite analysis once again, the ultimate goal being self-determination, being African sovereignty, African fundamentalism. This is an analysis of the efforts that were underway in not only mitigating all of that, but eliminating it. And we have four ancestors here on this screen. To the top left, we have Dr. King. We're going clockwise to Malcolm X, Chairman Fred Hampton, and then last but not least, Medger Evers. And once again, my name is Brother Sam P.K. Collins. This presentation will highlight the origins of the FBI program known as COINTELPRO, and it will also highlight COINTELPRO's impact as it relates to Dr. King, Malcolm X, Medger Evers, and Fred Hampton once again. And we're also going to talk about modern forms of Black radical neutralization. And all of this is due to the works of this man right here, J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover, whose works are tied to the deportation and the malignment of the Right Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. So a lot for us to delve into today. And before we look back at the 1960s and 70s, again, we got to look at how our frame of thinking as a people has been limited to just thinking of ourselves as Americans rather than Africans living in America. And the fall of the Berlin Wall was a pivotal moment in establishing Americanism throughout the world and making the United States the center of everybody's frame of thinking in the world. With the fall of the Berlin Wall came the end of the Cold War being a silent conflict, proxy wars between the United States and the Soviet Union for the conscience of the world. It was capitalism versus communism. And with that war going on, COINTELPRO was originally designed as a method of going against communism, making sure that communism did not thrive on American soil, and Black people just got caught up in that. So by 1989, with the fall of the Berlin Wall, capitalism was the victor, and not only capitalism, but something known as Western liberal democracy, which is what America upholds, what we know to be a lie, what we know to be a system that does not agree or align with the values that African people had before they were subjugated. But 1989 was that period with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the propagation of Americanism as a status quo all around the world. And this was the turning point that we call the end of history. If you look up that book, you'll see that this was the time period where without question, Americanism was at the top, and this was the time period that we all grew up in, where people considered themselves Americans. And this was the time period that culminated eventually in the election of the first Black president of the United States of America. So I really hope y'all see where I'm going. Because by the end of the day, it's about the hearts and the minds of the people and how the FBI was pivotal in controlling that and narrowing our frame of mind. So COINTELPRO was a secret program that existed between 1956 and 1971, and it existed amid growing fears about communism. The nativist movement started, of course, it's always been in existence. White hegemony in this country, white male hegemony has always been in existence, but the nativist movements of the early 20th century snowballed into anti-immigrant and anti-communist movements, movements that took place during the Cold War. And even with court victories where the Supreme Court upheld the conviction of communist leaders for insightful language, even with those convictions, the FBI was still adamant about utilizing surveillance tactics that are considered illegal. And that's how COINTELPRO started, because they wanted to do all of this below board. As the US government was operating and putting on a show, and we were fighting for civil rights and just rights in general, the FBI was facilitating a program that collected information through illegal means. And they did that because they were unsatisfied, once again, with Supreme Court decisions that upheld convictions they got, but limited or called into question how their surveillance tactics are detrimental to our First Amendment rights and to our rights as so-called American citizens. Because keep in mind that the FBI, long before COINTELPRO, had been propping up local law enforcement agencies, becoming more interconnected, creating tactics for investigations. So during this time period from before Garvey's conviction up until 1956, there was always this question of, well, how much is too much? Or is the results worth, towing the line between legal and illegal? And we know that legal and illegal is subjective, but the point is that COINTELPRO was made out of frustration with the FBI not being able to take their surveillance to the level they wanted to. Because the US government had to save face, and they told them to be careful in that, the FBI went on ahead and did what they did, oftentimes out of sight of the US government, other than the Attorney General on a couple of occasions, who at the time was Robert F. Kennedy, who called for the wiretapping, or at least approved the wiretapping of Dr. King. And again, COINTELPRO, it laid the foundation for the Patriot Act, which expanded surveillance powers of the United States. It's all the same energy, but in different names. Now, as far as COINTELPRO's exposure, COINTELPRO, again, was around from 1956 to 1971. By 71, it was exposed by a group called the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI. They burglarized the field office in Pennsylvania. They stole documents. They passed it around to media organizations, and the Post took it on, the Washington Post. Once they took it on, the Senate committee launched an investigation, and they dug deeper. I would say by the 1970s or so, tens of thousands of pages of documents were acquired about COINTELPRO, about people who were being surveilled, about information being collected, about the tactics that were being used to neutralize movements, to sow distrust, to make people look illegitimate as organizers. All of this to control the narrative and to limit support and the power of radical movements that were against the American system. By the late 1970s, a group that included the late Afeni Shakur and the late Mutulu Shakur, they compiled a letter that was pretty much the inspiration for this whole presentation, because they established that lineage on paper between Garvey and between mass incarceration, because mass incarceration and control and the limiting of our bodies and the perpetuation of slavery has always been the goal here. So the FBI was pivotal in that through COINTELPRO by, once again, inciting our deepest, darkest misgivings about criminality and associating that with our people and sowing distrust so that we can jump on one another. And they talked about that in this letter. Afeni Shakur, Matula Shakur, and a whole bunch of lawyers who worked with RAM, who worked with the RNA 11 and so forth and so on. They talked about how before COINTELPRO, mass incarceration of Black people was not totally the issue that it is today. And that's not to say that, of course, we didn't have vagrancy laws in the Reconstruction era and people weren't getting locked up, but it has been exacerbated in part because of COINTELPRO. And you got to keep in mind that not all of our leaders were killed. A lot of them are still incarcerated today. And that was the connection that they drew between this program and they drew between our current condition as a people. The targets of COINTELPRO, once again, for the purposes of this presentation, we have Dr. King, Malcolm X, and to a lesser extent, Elijah Muhammad. We have the Black Panther Party, including Chairman Hampton, and we got Medger Evers. Again, the Supreme Court rulings in the 1950s and 60s, compelled the start of COINTELPRO. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference under the leadership of Dr. King was the first target, Dr. King and Bayard Rustin in particular. And by 1963, because the SCLC was formed in 1957. So by 1963, during the March on Washington, Dr. King became a target of the FBI due to his growing profile, his national profile at that. And tactics to discourage Dr. King from organizing included surveillance. They included character assassination through the exposure of his vices. They also included efforts to get him replaced as a leader. So just sowing discontent within the organization to get him replaced with somebody deemed more palatable. And they also went as far as encouraging King to commit suicide. Powerful. COINTELPRO, as it relates to the Nation of Islam, the circumstances of Malcolm X's assassination are under debate to this very day. I'm not going to get into that. All I will talk about today is that the FBI did have informants inside the NOI. They had agents inside the NOI. They took what was a disagreement or what was just a set of events between Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad, and they exacerbated that through their agents. And they were very knowledgeable about things that were going on. So to that effect, to a lot of people, it remains unclear, and there's a lot of debate around the circumstances of Malcolm X's death. But without question, the FBI was heavily involved in those efforts, at the very least by focusing on the negative aspects of their relationship and fanning the flames that led to the assassination. And during that time period as well, there was involvement or a focus on preventing the rise of a Black Messiah, Elijah Muhammad being identified as one potential Messiah, along with Kwame Ture, along with Malcolm X, along with Dr. King even. And we got also during that time period, the Black Hate Program under COINTELPRO that targeted the Nation of Islam, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, as well as the Congress of Racial Equality and the Revolutionary Action Movement, known as CORE and RAM. In Medger Evers' case, this is a very important case study because this speaks to the range of targets in the COINTELPRO. So Black movements, particularly Black nationalist movements, were the main targets of this program, especially by the 1960s. At the very same time, as I mentioned before, this program started as an anti-communist arrangement. And within that, they targeted J. Edgar Hoover and his goons. They targeted feminists. They targeted socialists. They targeted workers' organizations. They also targeted the right wing. We're talking about the Ku Klux Klan, the White Citizens Association, so forth and so on. And in the context of Medger Evers' assassination, which took place in front of his family in 1963, in the context of that, the FBI, for decades, they had evidence about who killed Medger Evers, and they had acquired that by installing an informant inside the Ku Klux Klan. That informant then tied up and held a Klan member at gunpoint to extract the information. But legally, that information, because it was gotten through illegal means, could not be used in a court of law. And by that time, Byron Della Beckwith had gone through 2 mistrials, so he was not found guilty and he did not face the consequences of the assassination until 1994. Let's keep in mind that between that time, 64 and 94, Byron Della Beckwith bragged on numerous occasions about murdering Medger Evers. And there were agents who heard that, who would later testify to that inside the 1994 trial or during the trial. And that trial wasn't even brought up on that evidence. That trial was brought up because of misconduct by the state in terms of how they manipulated the jury pool during a second trial, if I recall correctly. But in talking about the Medger Evers situation, it's important to highlight how the Ku Klux Klan was a tangential target of the FBI, all for information gathering and for just maintaining the pieces on the chessboard. I would say that can be argued to a certain extent with the Nation of Islam situation, just different tactics, different methods of controlling events, of controlling people, of controlling sentiments, of killing people when they need to, of just, again, narrowing our frame of mind and making sure that Americanism wins once and for all. When it comes to Chairman Fred Hampton, based out of Chicago, the youngest out of the ancestors who I'm talking about today, his murder was part of a bigger plot to subvert the Black Panther Party. So we're talking about 750 or so Black Panther Party members in prison, and at least 28, including Chairman Hampton, murdered as a result of COINTELPRO. The FBI was deeply entrenched in the Black Panther Party to the degree that FBI informants cosplaying as Black Panther Party members were committing criminal acts and siphoning funds from the organization. This was done in addition to the video surveillance and the wiretapping. As a matter of fact, the FBI was critical in terms of Mr. O'Neill, the agent that was installed inside the Black Panther Party that got Fred Hampton out of the way by way of becoming close to him, by way of moving up in the organization as an informant would. And this was a guy who too was manipulated by forces in Chicago. So what they do oftentimes is they manipulate our people by creating conditions that inspire criminality, and then they use that criminality to leverage us. So the person who turned on Fred Hampton and would later kill himself was in fact somebody who was manipulated by the FBI or blackmailed, or somebody who had a criminal charge held over him that he wanted to avoid, which made him work on behalf of the FBI to take down Fred Hampton. And that's a very important case here because this speaks to the racism that took place, because before we touched on the South quite a bit with the NOI, we did touch on New York, but Chicago is just as important because this is a place where our people moved during the Great Migration in search of better opportunities. So you still see the same issues concerning poverty and racial injustice being played out here. And Fred Hampton was a figure who inspired unity across racial lines. And that made him even more dangerous to the powers that be. And let's keep in mind that even during that time period, there was conflict between the Black Panther Party, who had taken on a Maoist, Marxist tone, versus that of Nationalists, who were more culturally centered, more about nation building, and more about some would call capitalism, for lack of a better word, I guess. There was that conflict during that time, and even we can even talk about how certain members, right, certain figures who are still revered today were being used as part of COINTELPRO to some extent. We have to acknowledge that history because that is part of the reason why we are here today as a people, where the more radical elements of our movement have been neutralized and maligned and put to the side. So the key takeaways of this presentation, again, It's not too cursory. It's enough to at least inspire conversation. And my hope is that we continue studying. The key takeaway is that we have to look at this in the spectrum of time. It's a continuum. COINTELPRO is still here, but by another name. And that is something that we have to understand and overstand, because, and it's much easier now with social media. And there's always been discussions about how far is too far. And, we see now that the government has its mask off fully. So we have to study history to understand what it is that we are currently looking at. And one particular thing I want us to think about is where we're getting our information from. We have to think about exactly what it is that is shaping our thought processes as a people, and how the FBI and other forces are part of that. And we didn't delve too deeply into it, but the FBI has gone as far as even working with Hollywood to produce some propaganda throughout the decades. But that's a conversation for another day. As always, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to discuss this with y'all, to discuss many topics as it relates to our people. And any questions, key takeaways, any reasonings you want to conduct, I'm more than happy to reason with y'all. And I'm rocking with y'all to the fullest. Peace and blessings, family. Asante Sana.
Powerful,
That was
powerful, powerful.
Always. Sam comes through, man. Sam comes
Yeah, I
through.
had I had opportunity to preview it before our roundtable. Um, it's not only powerful, it's insightful. It culminates the things that we were talking about when we started. It kind of puts it in a perspective. He even mentioned Hollywood and FBI. To see COINTEL, that's COINTEL 2.0 now. Recognizing the COINTEL has changed. It's already changed. It's already infiltrating other activities, other movements within the framework of our structure for liberation. It's already infiltrating African states. It's not new that it's going into Africa, but it's already attempting again, because the world has changed. The world has changed in the sense that America is no longer trying to be the guiding white nation. It is now trying to be a self-centered, selfish white nation. And therefore, it is making natural enemies across the world. So, yeah, it's going to fight for Africa because it needs Africa. And it's going to tell the Britons, we need Africa more than you. See, so the world is about to change. But COINTELPRO is going to always work against us. And we have to recognize that the counterintelligence, and whatever name it's known by, is always going to work against us. No doubt.
Yeah, I want to hail up the presentation too. Sam did an excellent job of breaking it up and giving us a detailed account. I love the way Chief Fode, you mentioned that Sam reminded you of Mumia. That's a perfect example, because Mumia is a journalist, Sam's a journalist. Sam ain't got no fear. In fact, he's the author of a book, and people need to get his book. But I really appreciate the fact Sam took the time out to do the research, and the things that he mentioned was so key. A lot of times we get caught up in the propaganda of the very enemy that is attacking us. And we got to be very careful when we do our research to make sure you got to watch what you believe and be able to check your resources, because a lot of times they put stuff out, and Sam kind of alluded to it in terms of what happened with the Black Panthers and the nationalist movement, or other, I call them cultural nationalists. That's a whole other discussion. But they warred with one another, but they did not war the same way until COINTELPRO put its tentacles in it. And the fact of the matter is, we got a lot of brothers who now ancestors who were in the UNIA, and they were also original Black Panthers. I want to mention them because one of them got shot in the shootout in LA, and that's the Freeman brothers, Ronald and Roland. So there's a whole lot of brothers that are ancestors, names that you may not know, who stood firm with the Black Panther Party, but we're also Garveyites. And a lot of times what we need to do, instead of allowing the system to disconnect us or divide us and have us coming at one another, and then they put their little tentacles in it and we end up fighting over crumbs and don't go after the big picture, we need to be very clear. It's now the time to close ranks with all of our brothers and sisters, regardless to what their ideology may be. If they're trying to get to the end of the road where we have a united African states or African United States under our control, as the PG say, and sovereign, it does not matter about the minor differences we might have, whether or not you're Christian, whether or not you're Muslim, whether or not you're Yoruba, whether or not you, as I said, the reality is we all spiritual Africans, and we want control of our destiny. And COINTELPRO is a weapon, or as Sam said, whatever they call it today, it's a weapon that they use to keep us divided. Let's go all the way back to the Berlin Conference. The Berlin Conference was an act of you could say it was a COINTELPRO action, because it was designed to divide Africans on the continent, and it was designed to stop a war amongst themselves and to carve up parts of the continent and to give them to certain other Yurugus. So that's it, and that segues into today. That's why we call on all Africans, north, south, east, and west, and even if they ain't on the planet, to rise up to be supportive of not only Brother Traoré, because everybody's caught up on the individual, but they got to understand the content of his character. You know, they're trying to make the character assassinate him when the reality is he's freeing up for the people in Burkina Faso, following the legacy of Thomas Sankara. So at this point in 2025, our 2025 got to be hands off of all of our leaders, particularly our young brothers and sisters who rising up and taking back our true identity. Anyway, I know I got on a Garvey platform, but
I think you're right on time, and I think Chief will agree with me. But see, that's why even with the Ma'at agreement, we don't have to agree on everything. We have to agree on at least one thing, that it is one unified Africa. That's what we have to understand. That's why whatever direction you're moving, if you're doing work that's going to help free Africa, if you're doing work that's going to help build a unified African nation state, if you're doing work that's going to help build a unified message that can go to people of African descent on the continent, outside the continent, if you're building that, that's where we all work together, because you ain't got to be in the same house with me. You got to do the work that's going to help us build the house that we have to have. That's the one movement. You can pick this movement and take a side, take any piece you want. It's still only one movement. The movement is for free Africa. If you want integration, just for the hell of a conversation, if you want integration, you want to be integrated in America, fine. Do the work to get integrated in America, because when I'm doing the work to build a unified Africa, you be happy, I'll be happy. See, we don't have an issue there. What you got an issue because you want to tell me to come your way. I ain't telling you to come my way. I don't want all these folks going back to Africa. If you ain't doing shit here, you ain't going to do shit in Africa. I don't need all that. I need you to work for what you believe in. If you believe in this, work for it. Because see, then when I'm working to build a unified Africa, I ain't working against you. I'm actually working for you, because if I got a unified Africa, they'll like you better. Just for the record.
That's right. That's right. Shout out to Brother Sam, man. Sam always comes through.
Always.
Sam always comes through, and it's always good to help our brothers while they're around. You know what I mean? Our sisters while they're around. Make sure they understand that they're...
Absolutely.
Is that me? Sorry, Chief. Your sound appears to be gone. I'm not sure what's happened there. Barbers, can you hear Chief?
No.
Sound appears to be gone. Okay. And he don't seem to be able to hear us either.
No.
Yeah, Chief Fode. No, he's still talking. He doesn't know. He can't hear.
All right, let me. Okay, I think he's caught up now. Nope. No, we still can't hear Chief.
Yeah,
Chief, if you go out, Chief, and come back in, if you can hear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. He's gonna do that.
Yeah,
She heard you.
So Sam did a great job, and
Yeah.
you know, Shaka Ra, I know how you feel, but you want to come back on over on this side and share anything around Sam's presentation, man, because I know how you feel, and I know you're doing the same kind of work, brother. And not only that, there you go, Chief is back, but Chief, can you hear us? No, he's still having difficulty. So Shaka Ra,
just to explain, brothers and sisters, our chief Fode is in Freetown, Sierra Leone, and dealing with some of the challenges that come with being on the motherland and trying to work this technology and these kind of things. Yeah, so just bear with us. But go ahead, brother. What was you saying?
No, I was asking if you wanted to share anything while we're waiting on Chief to come back about the presentation, because you do the same kind of work on a consistent basis, and we're really proud of you because you all are how should you say it, PG? Y'all are a relief to us because we are certain that y'all gonna continue to carry this movement forward. Not only you, Shaka Ra, but you have a young one who is coming up, and not only that, you have some powerful brothers, and your Baba is off the chain, always been. So you don't come as an individual, you come as a collective of Freedom Garvey movement of the Alkebalan revivalist movement of the UK. So I just want people to know when we talk about the Eye of the Whirlwind or Jicho La Kimbunga, that we are global. And thanks to you, we have an opportunity to do these type of presentations today. But anyway, I'll stop right there. And you got one shoot.
Give thanks, Baba, and the honor is mine. And as Chief Fode said, Brother Sam always comes through. I got a high level of appreciation for that, brother. And whenever he wants the platform for on Kimbunga Media, it's his. Yeah, what I'm saying? It's just one of them things. And the more we grow, it's brothers and sisters like Brother Sam that we want to put to full-time work. Yeah, what I'm saying, in these independent universal African nationalist media institutions. So stay tuned, brothers and sisters. What I'm saying, when Brother Sam has, he's an organizer, and he's a community worker. So when he has more time, you'll see him more on Kimbunga Media. That's just what it is. Yeah, we've had the conversations already, and so yeah, it is what it is. But it was a good presentation. Go ahead, Robert. Sorry.
No, not only that, Sam is an excellent educator. He's teaching young brothers and sisters not only how to write, but how to interpret what they read, and that is critical because as all of us know, growing up, with Shaka Ra, you were blessed. You were blessed with Pan-African nationalist family. All of us don't have those blessings. I mean, my mother was a nationalist, but she didn't talk about it on that level, but she was. And I came to know that as I got older. But a lot of times we don't have that opportunity of being taught at home, where is the first place that we should learn from. And then schools should be built by us, so we teach what we're supposed to teach. But anyway, I really appreciate you, Shaka Ra. I appreciate Kimbunga Media. But every time we go on any media over on this end, we shout you out because it's important for people to recognize. And on Carl Nelson's show the other day, me and Chief Fode were on there, and we were talking about this right here, what we're doing today. And so, but it's important to recognize that not only are you an activist, you are building family and you're carrying on a legacy of those who came before you.
Yes, sir. Well, I want to give thanks, as you say, for being raised in a Pan-African nationalist family, because of the fact that it's in that context that I become aware of all of the names that have been mentioned today, as far as political prisoners, and as has been rightly identified, political exiles as well. Yeah. And so you know, every now and then there was a fundraising drive for or a demonstration for a political prisoner. Most notably, Mumia Abu Jamal, because you know he was among the most internationally known. Yeah. But you know, every now and then it might have been Matulu Shakur, or you know what I'm saying, something like that. I had the pleasure of sharing a platform with Baba Sekou Odinga shortly after he was released a couple years ago. And I give thanks for the fact that I was able to give thanks for the example that he set, because he was a part of the team that was responsible for breaking Mama Assata Shakur out. Yeah. And so, you know, his continued work, and whenever the best of our political prisoners, one of the things that I noticed about them as far as our political prisoners in the United States of America is concerned is how such a high number of them remain revolutionary, even though they were behind bars for 20, 30 years. Yeah, you know, there's no group of people that I respect more than elders in the movement, people that join young and are still fighting when they're elders. But there's an added layer of respect for elders who were political prisoners for a significant portion of their life. I don't know if we can comprehend the struggle that it would be to keep your resolve when you have no real inclination or surety about the fact that you're going to be released from your current condition. I don't know what that is. Yeah, I don't know, you know, and so all I can really do is just give thanks to people like Baba Sekou Odinga, you know, Mama Assata Shakur, Baba Matulu Shakur, you know, and all of the others, you know, and it's just a shame that because they release when they're elders, and often very ill, we often don't really get more than a few months of them. Yeah, once they're you know, released.
That's right.
For whatever reason, and that's part of the plan. That's part of the program.
Correct.
But it's a marker for anybody who is looking at reparations. And reparations is a significant issue around the world.
Yes.
And in the United States of America, especially as it relates to the United States of America. You can judge, in my humble estimation, the viability of a reparations agenda by the extent to which it platforms the issue of political prisoners. Like that, the first demand, yeah, and it's one of the reasons why I appreciate Cobra, that the first demand, right, on the reparations agenda is the release of political prisoners.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah? You know, we don't leave our soldiers on the battlefield.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
that's right.
I just appreciate that. And finally, just to add to the open discussion, to obviously not living in the USA, just giving a bit of an international perspective. And let us remember, brothers and sisters, that political exiles and prisoners are a fact of African revolution around the world. Remember that there are people who are fighting in the anti-apartheid movement who are still in prison today in Tanzania, South Africa. Yeah. Remember that there's a book called Ja Kingdom, Rastafarians, Tanzania, and Pan-Africanism in the Age of Decolonization. And what it's looking at is the migration of Rastafari, now elders, from Jamaica to Tanzania during the 1970s and 80s. Partly because of repatriation as an inspiration, but also because of political persecution in Jamaica.
Yes.
That the movement in Jamaica was fighting and was being persecuted again. You know what I'm saying? But also Africans from the USA migrated to Tanzania for the same reason. One of the most obvious that comes to mind is Geronimo Gijabi.
Jaja.
He was
Yes.
who migrated to Tanzania, as partly as a result of that political persecution that was taking place, and he was a political prisoner in the United States for a significant period of time as well. Sorry, Baba.
No, you go ahead and finish.
So it's the I'm just highlighting that to show the connection, and what it means when we have at least a nation with a revolutionary inclination in play. Which is why it's important that when we look at the Sahel at the moment, many of us are fully 100% inspired and back in the program. Some of us are, as has been said many times on this platform, cautiously optimistic, but supporting whatever they're doing that's correct. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, in the midst of our cautiousness. Yeah, but it's important to have that anti-imperialist nation in play. And it's good that we have at least 3 of them at this moment in time on the African continent. Brother Sekou Kele, who was featured on Kimbunga Media many times, has put out when Senegal elected Diomaye Faye as president, as a part of the whole Ousmane Sonko movement in Senegal. He did a presentation on Kimbunga Media where he put forward 3 or 4 proposals that we should organize as an African diaspora and petition the Senegalese government to institute. And one of them, to make Senegal a sanctuary state for African revolutionaries. Yeah, that was one of the suggestions that he had, that we should petition. And I said at the time that I feel like we should operationalize that, get 100 Pan-African organizations around together to petition now. But I think that should be the case in relation to Burkina Faso, in relation to Mali and Niger, that the African diaspora should petition the nations to make them officially sanctuary states. Yeah, for the Sahel Alliance should become a sanctuary state or group of states for Africans who are fighting neo-colonialism around the world. And so I'm throwing that.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So Shaka Rod, it's interesting, and I can't put it out there right now, but your vision is on point, and I'll talk to you about that later. What you just shared last is powerful, and it's coming. It's coming. That's all I'm gonna say to folks. It's coming. But anyway, let me. You mentioned some key people, Geronimo G. Jaja Pratt, who I had an opportunity. I knew him. I talked to him after he got out, and he was a Garveyite. A lot of people don't know that, but he's a Garveyite. And not only that, he was motivated by his parents, who were with the Deacons of Defense. And I want to hail up some other people who people may not know were political prisoners, who are now ancestors. Brother Farouk Muhammad was a political prisoner who was our Counsel General for the UNIA. A lot of people don't know that. Him and Amari Obadeli, who was locked up in the same cell. You know, Obadeli was not assassinated, but he was definitely under attack by COINTELPRO. And for those who don't know, Brother Amari Obadeli, who was at one time the president of the Republic of New Africa. Well, a lot of people don't know Bilal Sunni Ali was the president of the Republic of New Africa also. But I have heard from the horse's mouth of Obadeli himself. He was a Garveyite. So I say that only to say that sometimes people don't understand that Garveyism comes up wherever you have a self-reliant and self-determination movement. It does not have to be under the UNIA or in the UNIA, because Garvey was not just about building a government for African people. He was about freeing all African people. so Garveyism has spread. But anyway, I don't want to go too far off, but I also want to mention, I mentioned Bilal Sunni Ali. I'm going to mention Fulani Sunni Ali, because sometimes we got to mention the sisters too, because sisters are also under attack, and sisters are also political prisoners. And not only that, think about the mothers of the political prisoners, what the mothers must be going through. So
George Jackson's mother.
Exactly. Again, I'm glad you mentioned George Jackson, brother. That I'm glad you mentioned him, because we want to get him in too. We want to understand that George Jackson demonstrated so much revolutionary action in prison that they had to move on him. And not only that, Black August, which grew from him and many other political prisoners. So there's still a continuation movement. But for all of our young brothers and sisters that's in tune with this, y'all need to be very clear. This ain't a new game. This is a long time movement that's been going on, long before the 20th century. Baba Akili mentioned that. And it's going to be continuing. But we need to understand that where there is opportunities for them to so-called assassinate us, and we know you can't kill the spirit, you can't kill the plan. You might kill the man, but you can't kill the plan. You know, we know that. But we also know that many people got left here and went in exile and are building movements other places. So like Chief mentioned Pete O'Neill. So important because Pete O'Neill housed Geronimo G.J. Pratt when he got out. Right. So what we need to understand is that, you know, victory is going to be ours. The question is how long we're going to be so apathetic as the masses of African people, and we stand aside and look and watch while they move on those brothers and sisters that's paving the way for us. So again, hail up to Brother Sam. Thank you, Brother Shaka Bra, for coming back on this side, because it's so important for people to see young brothers and sisters that are moving forward, and everybody ain't got this gray yet.
Picking on the gray.
But our movement is a cross-generational movement.
Right.
I want to make that very clear. You know, we ain't we the elders and they the youth. We one brotherhood. And we learn from each other. Right. You know, and I would say that to all the elders out there. You might be an elder, but show us what you're doing for going forward, and listen to some of our young brothers and sisters, because no movement, as Tony Martin told me, no movement goes anywhere without the youth and the women. And in fact, the youth and the women have sparked mostly every revolution on this planet, period. Anyway, I'll stop right there.
Just a quick thing. I do want to say in relation to Baba Geronimo G. Jaga, he's important because he's one of those voices who was able to pierce through a lot of the division between us and the cultural nationalists, so to speak, quote unquote, and Panthers and the quote unquote socialists. He acknowledged many of that COINTELPRO not only affected the Panthers but also the US organization and other, right, you know what I'm saying, and those kind of things. So he's a very, very important voice, to listen to. And also just to bring the issue of political prisoners. We nearly had a significant political prisoner in within the last year, in the name of Chairman Omali Yeshitela.
Yes,
absolutely.
Of the Uhuru movement, who I'm yet to, I don't know if I want to, but we're gonna have him on soon, because that story is mad. In terms of what he has been through for the last few years, and how the state has attempted to destroy the Uhuru movement, and the work that the Uhuru movement is doing in South Florida, I believe that is where Central is. Central Florida. Okay. Central Florida. Or South Central. Either way,
Pittsburgh.
Right. So we just have to remember that this thing is not done. And that is why that is a case that that we really need to document.
Very important.
And COINTELPRO may change, but it won't change what it's meant to do. It may change its name, it may change the way it looks, but it won't change its mission.
Absolutely,
it's not going to change it, and that's our job to defeat it.
Absolutely, Shaka, you're absolutely right about the particular nature of the case surrounding Chairman Omali and the Uhuru movement right now. As a former movement, I understand that movement from the inside, and I served as a leader in that movement. I was Northeast Agitational Propaganda Director, and I served as an international outreach coordinator for the NPDOM, which is the International Mass Organization. This is how I got connected to Africa, through that movement. And I've been able to, even though I resigned a long time, it's 16, 17 years ago since I've been around the movement, but there was a level of political seriousness and engagement that I appreciate from that movement. And I know who Chairman Omali Yeshitela is and the lives that he's impacted positively. But what's important is that the enemy does as well. And even though we're highlighting now the Uhuru movement 3 or 4, the Uhuru movement has decades after decades of decades having people attacked within their ranks. Fred Hampton Jr. was attacked within their ranks. I myself was attacked within their ranks. Other people were attacked within their ranks because of their style of aggressive, revolutionary exposure, engagement with the state. They do not back down from the state. And so for whatever criticism that, people will give them, you have to also held up the reality of the fact that they have not let the cracker go. They have been on the cracker's throat. They even got crackers holding down the cracker. You understand? So it's a powerful thing to really look at and see that the state is so desperate. White supremacy is so desperate at this late point in their sojourn that they're now attacking the people who've been whipping their ass the whole time anyway. They're now they're giving us the energy we want. Because if you look at the Uhuru movement now, they stand victorious. They stand victorious because the attack that they waged, the movement itself, and not just the Uhuru movement, but the unity of the people, the international world, stood up and fought that case. It wasn't just the Uhuru movement couldn't do it.
That's true.
And when you see that display of unity and that international solidarity across grounds, it makes you think about where we're going with this, because eventually that space is not going to be there. Mm-hmm. Eventually, that organizing space that the Uhuru movement has been taken advantage of for 50, 60 years is going to be closed to us. And even that form of organizing has already transformed due to technology. So even moving forward, as we talk about COINTELPRO, we have to understand that a lot of this is going to have to require for old organizers to re-educate ourselves in terms of security, in terms of how to communicate online, what to say and what not to say, what avenues, what channels to use. We don't know this. We just jump on and use things. But Brother Abid, for instance, he does a great job of trying to keep us aware of the safest ways to communicate. And so we need that. As we talk about COINTELPRO, we also got to talk about security and safety and even defense. So it's a large discussion because, we want to hell up Fred Hampton Jr. and Brother Mark Clark gave their lives, in Chicago, and at a very serious period of the time where we was really confronting the state ourselves as a whole people. The fear that those murders, the fear that those assassinations put into people's heart is not a joke. And it really has kept a whole generation from taking steps that should have long been taken. So hopefully we're thinking about fighting back this time. And not only physically, but even as you say in the Uhuru movement, fighting back with unity, fighting back with international solidarity. One of the things I can appreciate about the UNIA ACL RC 2020 and the leadership of PG Akili and Baba Senghor is that we've established a way to enter the movement and say, listen, let's establish a decree of Mayat. Let's say this is the mandate for us, coexisting together within this movement. It's only one movement, but it's many organizations, and we got to keep each other on point and watch each other's back and not have conflict. Avoid conflict. Even if we got a problem, we got to avoid the conflict. We got to find a way to sit down with people who can talk us through our problems and bring us out stronger and united. Or we're just leaving the door open for more COINTELPRO. We're leaving the door open for more infiltration. Whenever we're playful, we also attract opportunists. We also attract the kind of people that shouldn't be around the revolutionaries. So now is the time to get very, very serious. And we're talking about the difference between the nationalists and the cultural nationalists. Cultural nationalism has gotten a bad name, and largely because of COINTELPRO. But the reality is that when you look at our struggle, and globally, even here in Africa, we need a cultural revolution. Yeah, you see it right. You see it right now in the Sahel. They're decolonizing the street names. They're pulling the white wig off of the judges. You understand? That is a cultural revolution. It goes right along with what we're talking about doing politically and economically. Right. And so I think the purpose for culture, what we say, culture is our immune system, right? Culture is what keeps us healthy when under attack, And so let's continue to build on that. And just lastly, Chakra, you brought up Geronimo Pratt, Jajaga. And what I want to say about him is that he's one of the most politically honest revolutionaries that I ever had an opportunity to hear about, and also see him break it down, because a lot of times if you read the books, you come to the conclusion that they was just like all out at each other's necks, and they didn't have an understanding. But they did have an understanding, and they were politically educated, and they were being attacked. Both sides, all sides were being attacked. And so for him to be mature enough to come out and say, when he did get out, he had to set the record straight.
Yep.
He also set the record straight on certain infiltrators, people who were agents that got away, that we didn't realize was an agent, who actually instigated the murder that led to the U.S. and you know, Black Panther big beef. So some of those people are still around. Some of those infiltrators are still around. Some of those agents from back then are still around. They have gray beards. They have big heads. They got dreadlocks. They're still around. They're still around. And it's a serious thing. It's a very, very serious thing, because we're so late in the struggle that we can't afford infiltration. Everything we do has to be secure, and we have to prioritize political education and cultural reassessment, cultural reevaluation, and cultural, you know, revolution. It has to happen all in one. So with that, I just think that that's the way we fight COINTELPRO. We build our own codes.
I just want to say, when you mentioned the fact that brothers and sisters in the Uhuru movement have been attacked for quite some time, I personally have called correctional facilities, quote unquote, in the United States of America, just because a brother or a sister from Uhuru was locked up, and the call went out from Uhuru, jammed the phone line, and you know what I'm saying, and checking on this brother or checking on this sister, and we called from the United Kingdom, to check in on our brothers. And so now we've been, Chairman Omali and other members of the Uhuru movement have visited the UK many times, and when they're here, we oftentimes we're locked in debate. You know what I'm saying? Ideological debate and whatnot, but in the spirit of love, I've been to parties with brothers and sisters from the Uhuru movement. You know what I'm saying? But when it came to, you know, the brothers being locked up, it was one accord, and we had a responsibility to call in, even from the UK, and checking on our brothers and sisters. So we've done that. You know?
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna go back a little ways though to Malcolm X Park with Chairman Yasadeli and Kwame Ture. See, what a lot of people don't understand.
Great debate.
And despite those differences that occurred, many people that worked with the AAPRPGC and the AAPRP in general supported the attack of our brother Yasadeli, and same with us, because and that's the importance of the Mahat decree, because he actually has said he's a Garveyite. So what I want people to understand is everybody comes into Garveyism a lot of ways, and we, the rehabilitating committee, we love all the Garveyites that are doing any kind of significant work. So let the record reflect, we one movement. We got every kind of ways to come into it. We got different ideologies, but if we want a free and united Africa states, as Garvey was moving to do, we have to be inclusive of each other. And we have to set aside, as Charles L. James taught me, hammer it out on the anvil of reason. And if you can't hammer it out, leave it alone and do what you're doing together to work. Because in the final analysis, as PG, you always say, bring the work to the table.
Bring the work.
The work is what we need. And Renoko always says, everybody, regardless of what level of consciousness, can do something significant to help us get back to our traditional greatness. And if you don't know which way to go, there are people in the movement. There are people in the movement that'll show you which way to go. So anyway,
but it's about the work, and you also talked about cultural revolution. It's still time for a cultural revolution. We need it today more than ever, not just because of circumstances that surrounds each and every individual location. You need a cultural revolution to understand who you are.
Absolutely.
Because culture teaches you who you are. Culture gives you the values that you aspire to. Your cultural foundation helps structure the woman or man that you are. See, when you stand on culture, you stand on values and you stand on principles, and those principles direct you. As we fight an enemy that he or she, however you look at this enemy, stands on his value. He stands on his cultural value to attempt to dominate, exploit, subjugate the world. We have to stand on the cultural value that
Yeah.
we deserve an independent African nation, and we have a right to move in our own direction and control our own destiny. Cultural revolution means I understand that I may have a difference with you just by virtue of location, but I have more in common with you than I have in difference. And I build on those things that tie us together. You build on them. That's why it's the work. I ain't got to agree with that. You ain't got to agree with me on everything. Technically, all you got to do is do the work. If you do the work and I'm doing the work, we're going to be fine.
But I just want to add the
Absolutely.
name Baba Daruba bin Wahad.
Yes.
Because he's still with us. I had the pleasure of meeting him actually in Ghana last year. I think it was last year. Beginning of last year or the end of 2023. And he's an elder that's, you know, still fighting. In fact, I met him at the same event in Ghana that I met Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. at last year. And I saluted him. I bowed to him and I said,
Nice.
I'm greeting you, but I'm bowing to the spirit of your father in you. You know what I'm saying? And saluting. So we've got to connect those. And I'm saying that because it's important for us to transmit those names. My son, in fact, has the name, one of his names is Amaru, because he shares a birthday with Tupac Shakur.
Oh, okay. Great.
And we gave him that name because he's a child of the movement, and Tupac is a child of the movement. And we wanted him to see the life of Tupac Shakur as an example for him, good, bad, and indifferent. Yeah, you know, to understand what it means to be a child of the movement, and how the forces of Bakra imperialism will continue to hound you as a child of the movement. You have to understand the context of the life of a Tupac Shakur, and so we gave him that name. You know,
absolutely.
You know what's interesting about your statement, Shakara? My son, so gave me the information on Tupac Shakur. Now I knew Tupac Shakur, I knew about him, but then he took me to his music to show the revolutionary spirit in his music. On Tuesday, that son transitioned. So it is interesting that you bring up Tupac today. See, so it keeps it ever flowing, keeps it ever flowing. It keeps it connected.
So Baba Kelly, I just want to add that because y'all are hitting some key points. My grandsons had a war with me.
Sorry, Baba. Just before you move on there, I just want to say love and condolences to Baba. You said if I can't, you said your son transitioned, and that's I was not aware of that. So
just happened, Shaka, bro.
Yeah, it happened Tuesday.
Let us elevate the spirit, you know, of your son.
Man. Absolutely, man.
We don't get that.
And there will be a large memorial. We will be doing a large memorial because, you know, that's a very serious transition. Absolutely. But I was saying I had battles with my grandsons. I mean, literally verbal battles. And normally we don't battle. Guess what? They told me they knew Tupac was not dead. They fought me. They told me Tupac faked his death and he's coming back. I say, y'all, listen. I said, I know people who taught Tupac. Brother Kokiah Patterson, Brother Bilal, I knew people who taught Tupac. But anyway, I had to yield to them because they were serious, man. They were like, Baba Senghor, no disrespect. You don't know what you talk about. Tupac faked his death. Tupac is coming back. And so that's just how deep of an influence Tupac
is real
to young brothers and sisters. They wasn't accepting his death. They were serious. Absolutely. And I mean, now they're grown and now they overstand. But that was years back. And I mean, it was a thing because I thought I was gonna have to rumble with my grandsons around that because they consistently, they were serious too. They was like, Baba Senghor, you know, we don't disagree with you on a lot of stuff, bro. We listen to you, Baba, but you wrong, man. Tupac faked his death. I was like, oh wow.
Oh,
And
man.
that's just how deep the influence of Tupac Shakur's and Baba, you hit it earlier, and all of y'all hit it. Culture. Because Tupac was a cultural legacy that we can never forget.
That's right.
Because he tapped into some stuff that will never change, and now he's forever living. And I want to hail up his mama, Afena Shakur, because a lot of people don't realize what all the battles she went through around the movie that they did on Tupac. And you know, I had some inside talks with brothers and sisters who were close to Afeni. It was a serious war because Afeni did not want certain things taken out, and they were determined to take them out. But I just wanted to share that because young people can more relate to Tupac than they can Matula Shakur. They got to understand. They got to understand. Matula Shakur was Tupac's spiritual father, not his bloodline father, but his spiritual father. And what people don't understand about Matula Shakur is Matula Shakur came up with the concept of how to solve the problem of addiction, heroin addicts in New York, like 90 miles north, with acupuncture. So, but his legacy,
liberation medicine.
Exactly. His legacy still continues. And so, you know, yes, they broke out Assata Shakur, but the reality is they wanted to hold Matula until he died in prison because Matula was teaching people in prison. And that's the other thing you mentioned, Shakara, so important because Malcolm, I mean, even Malcolm, many of our brothers and sisters that become conscious in the penitentiary become legends for those people to become conscious that come in the penitentiary behind them. I'm gonna hail up my brother, the PLM in Baltimore, for an example. A brother Imhotep, you know, who was a political prisoner and found his consciousness there. He got a whole Pan-African liberation movement now. And so what we need to understand is, you know, if we are able to rehabilitate ourselves, because they don't offer no rehabilitation when they lock us down. But if we go through that kind of same rehabilitation that like Malcolm went through, where Malcolm studied the whole dictionary from beginning to end. I had the opportunity of meeting the lieutenant of the Nation of Islam, Sheikh Sharif. Everybody talks about Elijah Muhammad, no offense, but Sheikh Sharif is who housed Elijah Muhammad when they were trying to lock him up. And Sheikh Sharif is people who actually communicated directly with Malcolm. They wrote Sheikh Sharif out of the movie of Malcolm X because of that. But I want people to understand that there are tons of ancestors who influenced a lot of our brothers and sisters who became political prisoners and got exiled. So the movement continues. So Baba Akili comes out of Philadelphia, for an example. That's where they set up the first penal institutions for Black people in North America. A lot of people don't know that.
Right.
And not only was it the first so-called capital of these United States of America before Banneker City, DC, but Baba Akili, and they got the Liberty Bell and all like that up there, but Baba Akili knows exactly what I'm talking about. The Black Panthers used to hold meetings in the Church of the Advocate, right around the corner from the UNIA building. The UNIA used to meet there. So we are one movement. So brothers and sisters, stop talking about they over there and they over there. We got to be one. And that's how we make Africa one Africa whole.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad you make that point. I'm so glad you emphasized that point. I'm sorry for not being on screen. Currently in Freetown, but I can still talk. The same thing is happening right now, particularly in Sierra Leone, whereas the various Pan-African forces are now beginning to put differences to the side and come back to the table to figure out what we're going to do now. And so you have the rosters of different persuasions. You have the Pan-Africanists who were part of AAPRP here. You have different sectors of the Pan-African community here putting everything to the side to create one single coalition organization. And I think it's happening in more than one place. It's not just here. That's the vibe right now. Like we really got to push this, unity without uniformity. You understand? Peace within the ranks over everything. If this is one movement, then this is one army. The army got different. It got different bodies. You got the Marines and the Navy and the Air Force. It's the same thing here. You got you got the agitational propagandists. You got the scholars. You got the cultural leaders. You got everything we need, but it has to be organized a certain way. And again, I just want to held up the whole concept of the decree of Ma'at because it's right on time.
Yeah.
Ma'at is a concept that is ancient, and it is having a revival as a consequence of us needing a way forward to cleanse ourselves, in terms of morality. It's not just waking up, it's cleaning up too.
See?
After we wake up, we got to clean up culturally and spiritually. But yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we've talked about the feminine energy, and we always try to make sure we bring the feminine energy in. So, to the terminology, Ma'at, that is the goddess female energy that brought truth and justice and balance to the world that was that of Jehudi, the male energy. And we need to understand that that's all the times that we held up Ma'at, we're holding up the female energy that is significant for us to unify and understand the cultural differences and challenges that you face. That's why we say Ma'at.
So,
And many times we don't talk about it, but that's why you
so,
say it.
so while we on this subject of the goddess, I want to hail up my sister Marimba Ani and what's coming up, Brother Shakara. And I know it's important because the work that Marimba Ani is doing is ingraining the cultural, revolutionary, sovereign spirit in young brothers and sisters' minds. So I know we're coming up to a close, but Shakara, you want to throw something out there about what's coming up because that's so important. Because we got brothers and sisters on the continent now working to establish through the leadership of Chief Fode to establish Mahat agreements with groups on the continent like the Ancestral Wall, like we're working with Bibi Toomey, and we're working with a lot of brothers and sisters because it's important for us to do our job following the legacy that Garvey taught us of bringing Africa whole again. And when we bring Africa whole again, there's nothing that we cannot do. But the work that Marimba is doing down south is so relevant. I first met Marimba Ani at a Nation House event that was held in tribute to the ancestral shrines in Virginia. And when I met that sister, I was totally convinced that not only was she one of those goddess sisters we talking about, Baba Kili, but she's a legacy. She's not only carrying on the work of Francis Cress Welsing, and last night we had a brother on. Y'all gonna hear from him. He's carrying on that same psychological revolutionary work. But anyway, I want to stop right there because I said that because Shakara, you opened up with a great piece on announcing what is taking place. I think it's May the 10th in Atlanta. That Marimba Ani is responsible for bringing together core groups of young brothers and sisters from all over the world and moving forward to get us focused more on African sovereignty.
Yes, Baba. And you mentioned Nation House. That's now ancestor Baba Kwame Ajayakoto, if I'm not mistaken.
Ajayakoto, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so, yeah, I just want to shout out to Baba and this particular book right here.
Yeah, man.
By himself and his wife, Akua. Mama Akua.
Yes.
Yeah.
But see, I know the whole Ajay family, man, and I mean the young brothers and sisters are powerful. And one of my daughters went to Nation House, and Sam still teaches there at Nation House. So I just wanted to
that's where he's teaching.
That's one of the places he's teaching. That's one of the main places.
I know he teaches. Yeah,
at Watoto Nation House, because I was a part of that when Hakeem Buddha was tied to Brother Ajay when they did the whole cultural thing with Rise Vision of Coming. You mentioned Ajay. Ajay is another legendary brother that worked with Hannibal Afrique and dropped the bomb. They came out, they turned Howard University away from the coward aspect side. And believe me, that's where Nation House built the Nation House Positive Action Center. And they also built a whole legacy of fraternities that teach young brothers up through the ranks. And that's where I met Marimba Ani. I just wanted to throw that out. Baba Ajay, Brother
it's powerful. It's powerful. I'm eternally grateful for Baba Kwame Ajayakoto, particularly for his book, Nation Building, Theory and Practice in African Education. It's biblical as far as us developing the right curriculum framework for African-centered educational institutions. So I just want to plug that book. But yes, Baba, Mama Marimba Ani hosts a ritual every year called Abakosem Sum Sum. Abakosem is the narrative of our ancestors, our people. And Sum Sum is spirit. And so it loosely translated, the event could be translated as the spirit of history, or the spirit of the narrative of our ancestors. And the focus of the event is to connect us with our warrior ancestors. And our warrior ancestors literally visit us and minister to us at the event. It's a particular, and then you know, I don't want to talk too much, but last year, after the ancestors visited us and spoke to us, we had about 4 or 5 different trainings in martial arts. Yeah, in different martial arts. That's the nature of the event that Mama Marimba hosts every year.
Nice.
It's not that every year. You know what I'm saying? Like the martial arts thing is not there every year. It's been there before last year. But I'm showing you that the spiritual inclination of it doesn't deter us from engaging in practical preparation. In fact, the two are supposed to feed each other. And that is the nature of the event that Mama Marimba hosts. Yeah. And so it's taking place on the 10th of May. I'm gonna replay the trailer before we close out. And if brothers and sisters want more information, I'm gonna leave that information in the link, in the description to this video, so people can, you know, come and tap in. So yeah, I'm gonna be there in at Abakasim this year on the 10th of May in the ATL. So if you're in the ATL or anywhere, in the United, anywhere in North America, just calm down.
But Shaka Bro,
man.
I like the way you said though ATL. I want to tell you what ATL means. It don't mean Atlanta. It means Africans Together Liberated, and that's where y'all gonna be.
Right.
Africans Together Liberated. y'all have to be inside that state of Georgia, but y'all are ATL, Africans Together Liberated.
And just shout out to Ras Marvin and all the Garveyites.
Yeah, man, all the Garveyites.
Yeah, shout out to Ras Marvin.
Yes. Shout out to all of them.
That's my guy, man.
And like
Ras
I
Marvin
say,
is my guy.
And I'm sure some of Bilal Sunni Ali's family, some of his youth are gonna be there. I'm sure, because you know a lot of people don't know the history of how connected that ATL is. Just like I call DC Dumb City, but there's a Banneker side. Just like we call Baltimore Be More Careful, but there's a Tubman side. Wherever we got black people, we need to claim our own communities, and that's why I like the ATL as being Africans Together Liberated.
Absolutely. And you know, you just mentioned a big name, man. Ras Marvin.
Ras Marvin.
That man right there is a serious Garveyite. You know, I didn't know him until I was dealing with my own political incarceration, but he was so supportive. He was so supportive. He had a website where he would promote all of the cases of political prisoners.
Right, the CBPM, CBPM.org.
And I kept hearing that. I kept hearing that he was promoting, you know, putting it out there. But when I got home and I finally looked online and I seen all the stuff they had put out there around me, I was like, wow. So I reached out to the brother and had opportunity to even sleep in his office down in Atlanta.
Right.
I stayed with him for like 2 days, you know. And Ras Marvin has a knack for science. He really has a real skill with children. He's really been around him.
He's an engineer.
Yeah, he's really been around him, man. He know how to make rockets. He know how to make cars.
We call him Rocket Man.
Man, genius. Yeah, Rocket
That's
Man.
right.
Yeah,
Rocket Man.
Hey, and not only that, he can spit some cultural science, word sound power too.
Yes, he can.
As you know, so we all so, and I know Shaka Ra like that, and Chief O'Day, you do that. I'm an old school poet. You know, I don't call myself a hip hopper. I'm a slop hopper. I come from the slop hopper era, but I can spit a little bit too, and I call it blacktricity. So we gotta be. We also have to, you know, how should I put it? We gotta wear a lot of different hats in the movement. And when y'all mentioned Ras Marvin as an engineer, and I communicate with Ross a lot, by the way, you know, I'm still a consultant for the Collective Black People's Movement. And so I just want people to understand that the public that's listening out there, we still brothers. I mean, I helped him bring him into UNIA. Baba Killy knows. And so
Yeah.
I look up to Ross Marvin, always check in with him because he's a master engineer, come from Jamaica, out of New York.
Yeah, man.
You know, he traveled the same trail as Marcus Garvey and ended up in the ATL. But anyway, I just want to hail him up. And like I said, Shaka Ra, if we're not there physically, we'll be there with you spiritually. But certainly it'd be good if I could make it, I will. But it's so much happens in DC and so much going on right now up here, brother. Oh man, I don't have time to tell y'all all the different things going on in Banneker City, but I will.
What do y'all
say
got going on for Malcolm X Day? What everybody
there's
got going on for?
All right, let me
for
tell
the
y'all.
Sentinel?
Well, Malcolm X Day, I'll be in Malcolm X Park in Southeast Washington D.C. with the Black population drumming. But on the 16th, there's a major reparations and repatriation event taking place with all reparationists around NCOBRA coming to DC. And then on the 17th, we'll be outdoors doing a big event with cultural entertainment, honoring Malcolm X again. But there are a tremendous amount of programs going on in the DC area around Malcolm. But what we need to understand is this is centennial, and we didn't mention a lot about Patrice Lumumba, because I can't mention Malcolm without mentioning Patrice Lumumba. Because to me, Patrice Lumumba was the Malcolm X of Africa, and Malcolm X was the Patrice Lumumba of America. To me, you know, and so because they kind of help bring in the same kind of cultural energy at the same time on continent and here, and they were both born in 1925. But this is the 100th centenary of both of them brothers and Medger Evers. So we need to recognize that their spirit is pretty much all over the place. Brother Haki is doing a bus trip. He's taking a bus trip. He's following the Soul School Institute's a long-time legacy of taking people into New York. The group in New York that always shuts down 125th Street, they're going to shut down the whole block on Malcolm X Day. So there's a tremendous amount of things going on in Detroit, California, and everywhere. So we say, let Malcolm's spirit live, because everything Malcolm tried to warn us about, or everything Malcolm had envisioned, is manifesting right before our face today.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
absolutely.
Just to add to that, stay tuned, brothers and sisters, because Kimbunga Media has released some content in relation to the centennial of Omwale Malcolm X, and we'll be releasing more tomorrow. In fact, a recitation of the aims and objectives of the Organization of Afro-American Unity, which is the organization that Baba Omwale Malcolm X was developing when he was assassinated, will be released tomorrow. Yeah, so you get a recitation of those aims and objectives as they were written in 1965, remembering that it was this particular charter that he was on the verge of presenting when he was assassinated. Yeah, so that's extremely important. We've got a message coming from our brother Sipiwe Bakala, who is going to be teaching on Baba Omwale Malcolm X's connection to the PGRNA, the Republic of New Africa, and people like another ancestor who celebrates his 100th birthday this year, Robert Williams. Yeah.
Robert Williams. Yes.
Born in February of 1965.
Medger Evers.
Yes, indeed. What's it called? Robert Williams is Revolutionary Action Movement, RAM. Yeah. So, Brother Sapiwe is going to be teaching about all of those connections between the OAAU, RAM, and all of the other Black nationalist organizations of that time. We have messages from Baba Mwalimu Buruti and Mama Marimba Ani coming as well on the theme of Omwale Malcolm X. Yeah. In the coming weeks. In fact, I believe, based upon social media, that it is actually the anniversary, possibly the 40th anniversary of Baba Mwalimu Buruti and Enaya Buruti today. So shout out to Baba and Mama on their wedding anniversary. You know what I'm saying?
Some of the key folks in the ATL. Some of the key people in the African Together Liberated.
That's right. You know, so yeah, there's all of that taking place and more. I'm probably going to do a long couple hours presentation as well at some point on the political legacy of Omwale Malcolm X and his sojourn in Africa, but we'll come back to that. On the 17th, however, of May, Africans in the UK will be gathered for an official centennial celebration on Wally Malcolm X's grand celebration taking place at City Heights Academy in South London. So do check it out, and you can get all the information for this on Kimbunga Media. Yeah, kimbungamedia.com for more information and tickets for all the information. So yeah, we're gathering in the UK to honor Wally Malcolm X.
All right.
Stay tuned, brothers and sisters, for more information on the Patrice Lumumba celebration in July. Yeah, stay tuned for that. Go ahead, Chief. Sorry.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Because you've been doing such great work around the Congo crisis, and if anybody should bring it to light and lead that kind of commemoration and veneration, brother, it should be Brother Shakara for sure. I learned a lot about the Congo crisis from you this year, brother.
Yes, sir. Well, give thanks, and I want to shout out Uncle Luwezi Kinshasa, who is also a member of the Uhuru movement.
Absolutely.
Who will be collaborating. Yeah, he's actually from Congo. Brothers and sisters who have been watching will know that we've already spoken to him on the issues regarding Congo. But we will be collaborating to honor Papa Patrice Lumumba. Brother Luwezi also will be at the Omowale Malcolm X centennial celebration. He's one of the speakers for that event. And we're organizing a Patrice Lumumba centennial celebration for July also. So do stay tuned. And I should also say that as the Al-Qaeda Revivalist movement, our Shemida, our monthly Shemida, our African spiritual worship, will be honoring what Brother Leader Bandaka is calling the triple centenary of Malcolm X, Patrice Lumumba, and Frantz Fanon.
Okay.
So that will be our focus this coming Sunday, the 4th of May. And I am honored to be the messenger on that day, honoring Frantz Fanon, Patrice Lumumba, and Malcolm X. So do come true for that. But if you're unable to, due to international travel restrictions, the message will be on Kimbunga Media at some point soon.
So by the way, while you mentioned that, like we want to make sure all y'all listeners out there understand, if you can't catch us live on Kimbunga, you can always go to the YouTube Kimbunga site and check out things. And Shakara is loading that up, so y'all can go back and check out some of the things that the Brotherhood has done, as well as you can check out a lot of other things. So that's an infomercial I just wanted to throw out there. It's important because we the eye of the world win. And the eye of the world win is serious about the movement. I want to say that again. I might be a humble servant of the teachings of the Right Excellent Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, but me and the President General, Akili Nkrumah, are keeping it true to what Garvey's wishes is to unite African peoples at home and abroad, and those people who don't come into consciousness, and they might be skin folks, but not kin folks, y'all can stay wherever you're at. But we calling on all conscious brothers and sisters to help rebuild Africa. That's my closing remarks, y'all.
Go ahead, Chief. I you want to close out? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Baba.
No, I was going to say it's really not much to say after that, because it is about one Africa. It is about, us coming together as a people and us moving together as we are. Move together as a solidified unit. There are always many different battles to fight in many different directions. Fight with one cause in mind, one Africa.
One Africa, Mama. Chief, you're muted if you're speaking, so go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man, I just want to reiterate what everybody else said, man. It's all about one Africa. And in the context of, the purpose for this gathering today, let us stay on point. Let us prioritize security. The work defines us. If you come across someone who ain't doing no damn work, raise your eyebrows on them. Make sure they get involved, and keep your circle clean. COINTELPRO is a real thing. Prison is real, exile is real, but life to life. It's life to life. You can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution.
Nope.
You can kill the Garveyite, but guess what? You can't kill the Garveyism, man. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going and resurrecting itself. And so let us never forget that we are first and foremost spiritual beings, like Baba Senghor always reminds us. And this is a very temporary experience that we're having. Let us be real. Let us be one. One Africa.
One Africa.
Black people, we've got to fight. The petrol, you see us. Oh, we've got to fight. Let's go fight. Oh, black people, we've got to fight.
It's your war. War in the east, war in the west, war up north, war down south. This a war